not everybody's got great takes on everything. And
I don't know much about Vaush. What is his take on that stuff? I'm just curious.
It's been a while because basically after I saw the first time that he discussed it, I didn't ever. Anytime I see a clip come up that's like Vaush talks about the MC, I'm like, nope, I'm not watching that because I don't want to hate Vaush. So like,
it's like I'll listen to your other takes that it's more digestible. It doesn't irritate me.
Yeah, ironically, like it seems like his takes kind of, and maybe somebody correct me if I'm completely off base with this, but from what I remember of what I saw, it kind of lines up with the types of people that he always talks shit on, the types of leftists who are just like, LARPy revolutionary left, in the sense that they think that all superheroes are bad because they're like part of the establishment and they could overthrow the establishment, but they don't. It's the kind of take that I've planned on covering at some point, and it's just there's always like more harmful shit going on from the right. But that does fit in line with like the things I'd like to cover, and that actually irritate me personally is like these leftist takes that are
I think a recent take he had something about, I think they were talking about Spider-Man, and I think he said that like the reason why the MCU Spider-Man films suck is because he's part of a universe full of superheroes, and I'm like, isn't Spider-Man like literally the face of Marvel?
That's Marvel Comics. He's always existed with other heroes.
I mean, this is a character who literally had a run going from the 70s and 80s of nothing but team-ups. He was literally the face of team-ups.
Yeah, I mean, they're the superheroes are doing. They're kind of like depending who we're talking about here, but like generally you can kind of see there's elements of anti-fascism. There's elements of definitely harm reduction. That's Spider-Man to a T. Really, is like he's harm reduction man. Basically, he's going around and reducing harm to the city. And whenever things come up that he needs to deal with on a larger scale, he does that. And it's like, what are you expecting them to do? I mean, I'm like I say, I don't want to misrepresent Vaush on this. Maybe Saturday I'll grab some clips of him talking about it and we can go over it. But I can really fucking set his ass straight. You hear that, Vaush? I'm coming for you now.
Right.
Like, what is ComicsGate fully? Because I tried to like look it up and like look into it a little bit. I got bored with it because that's not really my speed. But what is it defined?
Well, I mean, depending on what source you find, if you find some of a ComicsGator or someone that supports them, you're going to get a wildly different explanation, because part of their whole thing is deflecting any criticism about what they're actually doing and any of the harm that they've caused. All right, so here is an article. It's actually like a long blog, like several parts, but
great.
We're not going to read all of it, obviously, but yeah, this
I just need the cliff notes. The writer's like, what am I getting myself into?
I mean, well, partly this. So I'll try and just use this as my jumping off point to kind of know where to start to explain it in a summary.
Okay.
So essentially, like I was telling you on the show the other night, when it comes to like the fandom menace and Doomcock and Geeks and Gamers and stuff, this is just the comic book area of that same shit. It's the we've got a problem with fascism. And it's growing in the world, but it's growing in the U.S. in particular as well. And Trump is kind of the figurehead of that, but he's far from the only figurehead. It's just it's a
he was just like the lightning rod,
And so ComicsGate is that in the comics fandom arena, in the same way that Doomcock is that for Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever. And like, if you look at like a lot of the people that talk a lot of shit about anything progressive, like Dean Cain, you know what I mean? Like, fucking who else is there that's like
Kevin Sorbo?
Yeah, they're almost always people who their career is behind them. Like they're not doing any good work. Nobody's hiring them. And, and they like to portray it as that's because of their political opinions, when really it's because they're not that talented or just nobody wants to hire them. And you know what I mean? For whatever reason, but then they like to use that resentment to aim it at the industry, and then it becomes about, well, the industry is corrupt because of this liberal SJW woke, you know what I mean? Like, so it all just kind of extends from this inner, failure to evaluate themselves and failure to grow in a lot of cases,
Right.
Because a lot of, like in the comics industry, a lot of these ComicsGaters are failed former professional creators who, you know, maybe a lot of them had their heyday in the 90s or the early 2000s. And then, you know, they kind of stopped getting as much work for whatever reason or another. Like it has always happened throughout comics history, but these guys in particular feel entitled to be professional comic artists. The fact that the fact that they're not getting the work anymore, even though they were freelance creators in the first place. And
Right.
you
Now
know,
they're resentful.
anybody that goes into a freelance area of employment knows what that means. You don't start being a freelancer. You don't commit yourself to being a freelancer and think, I'll always have this job. You're just going to have to keep working at it in a lot of cases. If you're not, you're going to lose jobs. You're going to have to find another one. That's what being a freelancer is about. But they seem to ignore that. And Ethan Van Sciver is the figurehead of it. Yeah, go ahead.
He is the head. Like
So,
he is.
He's butted his way into the movement.
Okay.
And made himself the figurehead of it. There is no like official organization.
Gotcha.
But he is definitely the figurehead of it, and it's actually splintered into other pieces now. Like it was much more powerful and large probably 2 years ago.
You should probably keep in mind he doesn't own the trademark to it. He doesn't own the trademark to it.
No, he doesn't. But like, yeah.
You know what I do? So I see a sentence here that says, it's hard to deny that some comics in recent years, particularly from Marvel, have been playing with liberal ideas and themes. However, with that said, I'm not all convinced that is much of a problem, right? Again, the comics, yes, I agree that they have been playing around with some liberal ideas and themes, and that is not, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Like diversity and inclusion and all that stuff should be a good thing. Yet one side of our country has made it this like witch hunt almost, and then he goes on to talk about being physically ill, and that's how it makes me feel. It's like you guys are literally crazy to think that this is a bad thing. Like I have a couple friends that are my whole team is made up of like me, right? Like not white guys from Boston, right? It's and the things that they tell me, like my former co-host, right? He's like, I always gravitated towards Miles Morales because it was nice to see someone who looked like me doing the things that he did. And like that'll always resonate with me. It's like, yeah, it's easy for me to like love Captain America, but like, what about them?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I had a similar, it was years ago. I was probably like 12, 13 years old. I had a friend that basically looks like you, PR. I don't remember what ethnicity he was specifically, but he was Hispanic, and he was just as much into comics as me. And I remember him telling me one time, like, I just wish there were more, brown skinned superheroes that are like prominent. I mean, like there's some here and there, but they're not like the big ones. And I was like, why does it matter? Like, I was like, why can't you just, you know what I mean? Like I was kind of taken as a 13-year-old, the same position as these ComicsGaters take, which doesn't say much for their, maturity level. And he's like, man, you don't know what it's like. Like you see your face, your skin color on all these characters, and I don't get to see that as much. You know what I mean? Like you get to look at Captain America or Spider-Man and go, that pretty much looks like me. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
and I was like, and I remember then that struck me. I was like, oh fuck, damn dude. Like I never thought about it. You know what I mean? But
and we have to also like we do have to look at it and say, when these things were written, they were different times. We can't necessarily hold that against us, like as white straight males. We can't take that as like, oh my god, we're sinners. But the fact that we've now have a world where there's a black, Asian, Pakistan. This is like, it's great. It's so cool that everyone can feel how we feel.
And that's the thing. They don't want that. They don't want other perspectives to be acknowledged or to be validated or normalized. You know what I mean? Because like you're saying, you and I think it's cool. You and I are empathetic people, and that like we know how good it feels to be validated, and we want other people to have that too.
Exactly.
Whereas these types of people refuse to, either they can't or they just refuse to. They're so brainwashed by propaganda from the content they consume all the time that they can't even comprehend that being something that's valuable to them as human beings.
Right.
It's more valuable to them. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think that racism is something you're born with or something that you develop due to circumstance?
It's absolutely taught. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, yeah. Speaking of what you just said a minute ago, I was thinking as you said it. That's something that whether it's ComicsGate or the Fandom Menace or even just the strictly political sphere, that when it comes to CRT and woke politics, they like to act like people. I do not feel a fucking stitch guilty for anything as far as like systemic racism. I don't feel personally guilty for slavery or for denying civil rights or anything like that. And that's what they don't understand. It's like they think that by educating ourselves that we're taking on some kind of original sin kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, well, our souls are stained with this sin of racism now if we accept it as true that these things exist. And it's like, I don't feel guilty about it, and I don't let anybody make me feel guilty about it. I wouldn't, because it's absurd. I didn't have anything to do with it. You know what I mean? Like I acknowledge that I benefit from it. Which I've been talking about lately, as far as like the legal trouble I had when I was younger. I don't think it would have gone very well for me if I was not white.
But the fact that we can't acknowledge that like there is injustices and a slant, right? Perspectively, and the fact that we're not contributing back into that, I think is a good thing. And like there are people that upset me that like if I'm white, I'm the bad guy just because of that. And it's like, no, you don't know me. Trust me, I'm on your side about a lot of it. And it's just like an internal battle. So I'm sorry I even brought that up. So back to this comics thing.
It's all good. Yeah, I mean it's relevant. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's basically that's the gist of ComicsGate, honestly. Like that's really all there, anything else and we'd be here all night. But yeah, that's it. It's an extension of everything else that's going on culturally and politically today. They will often not admit to what they really think. They like a lot on the right these days, they love to meme a lot. They like to troll and they like to meme. They don't like to be direct or sincere about their thoughts and their goals and stuff. But
they run Facebook. Well, Meta or whatever it's called now.
And you can essentially you can suss out their positions just based on their memes and shit usually. But
so Geeks and Gamers,
never forget the Black Panther alt-right meme.
Yeah, Geeks and Gamers is a big perpetuator of this ComicsGate.
No, they're more like there's the Fandom Menace, which is and then in ComicsGate, of course, there's probably a Venn diagram that's nearly a complete circle. But in terms of like the types of channels and media that they cover, ComicsGate is comics, and the Fandom Menace is more like the movies, and Star Trek and Star Wars and shit.
Okay, got it. That makes
but the talking points are 100% the same. The arguments, the attitudes, 100% the same. So that's why I'm saying like the Venn diagram is almost a perfect circle.